The haunted hospital, where patients still scream at night. The scream came first. It was so sharp and loud that it felt like glass breaking inside my chest. It rolled down the hallway of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, bouncing off the cracked tiles and broken windows. I froze, my flashlight shaking in my hand. Jordan whispered, "Did you hear that? It sounded like a person." Lily's voice was even softer. "It said my name," she whispered. We stared at the far end of the hall, where a dark shadow stood in a doorway. Tall, thin, and waiting. Then, without warning, every light we carried blinked out, and we were trapped in complete blackness. The air was cold, too cold for a summer night. And then, a nurse's bell rang. Once, twice, 3 times. That wasn't how the night was supposed to go. Earlier that morning, the 3 of us sat in a coffee shop with our backpacks full of gear. I had the camera and tripod, Jordan had an audio recorder, and Lily brought her research notes. The plan was simple. Film Waverly Hills for our folklore class project. Get some history shots. Maybe capture a creepy sound for extra credit. That was all. Nothing more. We'd promised ourselves we'd be safe, respectful, and smart. We laughed at the internet stories. People claiming to hear voices, to see nurses in the halls, to feel hands tugging at their clothes. "If we hear anything," Jordan said with a grin, "it'll be the wind." None of us truly believed the old hospital could still be alive with voices. By the time we parked on the hill, the sky was fading gold. Waverly Hills rose in front of us, a giant block of stone with windows like hollow eyes. Ivy climbed its walls, and broken glass glittered at the edges of the windows. Even in daylight, it looked more like a castle of nightmares than a hospital. At the gate, a guide named Mrs. Carter met us. She smiled kindly, but her eyes were serious. "Sake, to the marked paths," she warned. "And if you hear the bell, don't answer it." We didn't ask her what she meant. We didn't want to look scared before we even went inside. The lobby was the first place we saw. Dust floated like tiny stars in the shafts of light. A chandelier hung crooked from the ceiling, threatening to fall at any second. On the wall, faded letters spelled out, "Waverly Hills Sanatorium," though some had chipped away. I set up the tripod and panned across the room. Lily whispered into the mic. This hospital treated tuberculosis patients in the early 1900s. Thousands died here, and many believe their spirits never left. My camera lens trembled slightly, though my hands weren't shaking yet. We told ourselves this was just a building, nothing more. The tour began at sunset. A group of 10 people, flashlights in hand, followed our night guide, Mr. Lane. His voice was calm, steady. "You will hear noises," he said. "Old wood, wind through broken windows, pigeons in the rafters. Don't rush to call it ghosts, but don't ignore what feels strange either. Sometimes this building speaks." We followed him into the second-floor hallway. Our steps echoed. Somewhere ahead, a door clicked open on its own. Jordan shined his light. Empty room, peeling wallpaper. He laughed nervously. "See? Just the air." No one else laughed. The first time the air shifted, it felt like stepping into a freezer. Cold wrapped itself around us even though it was June. I rubbed my arms and glanced at Jordan's EMF meter. 2 green lights blinked on, then 3, before falling back to 1. "It's just the wiring," he muttered, though the power had been cut years ago. Lily closed her eyes. "It feels like someone's here," she whispered. None of us wanted to answer that. We reached the nurse's station. The desk was bare except for dust and a small silver bell, the kind you press with your fin. It should not have been there. No one had seen it earlier. It gleamed faintly in the flashlight beam, as if someone had just polished it. Mr. Lane noticed too. "That's strange," he said quietly. "That wasn't here during our last tour." He motioned us forward. "Don't touch it." We didn't. We only stared. Then it rang. Ding. The sound was soft and polite, almost gentle, but hit me harder than the scream would later. The bell had rung by itself. Jordan spun around with his recorder, hands shaking. Lily whispered, "Who's calling?" and the silence that followed was heavier than stone. We stepped back, hearts racing. The bell rang again. Ding! Mr. Lane frowned and called out, "All right, everyone together. Stay calm." That was when it happened. From the darkness at the far end of the corridor came a scream. Not soft this time, not gentle. A full human scream that clawed at the walls. It rose high, cracked and broke into sobs. Lily covered her mouth. Jordan whispered, "That's impossible." But the sound didn't stop. It stretched and echoed, as if more than one voice joined in, as if the hall itself was screaming. I lifted the camera with trembling hands, filming the darkness ahead. "This is it," I whispered. "The patients. This is what people talk about." My voice shook. Another scream ripped through the hall, closer this time. The sound was raw, desperate, like someone begging to be saved. We should have run then. We should have left, but we didn't. The bell rang a third time, sharp and urgent. And then the door marked treatment at the far end of the hall slammed open with a violent crash. Dust poured out, the air rushing past us like something alive, carrying the weight of every scream that had ever echoed in this building. And in that moment, with the screams still ringing in our ears, we knew we were not alone. The treatment room door slammed open so hard that the sound shook the floor. Dust exploded into the hall like smoke from a fire, and a freezing wind rushed out of the room, cutting through us like knives. My flashlight flickered, showing nothing. I dared say it at just darkness, heavy and thick. The screams grew louder, not one but many, overlapping like dozens of voices calling from inside that room. Lily clutched my arm, whispering, "We have to go." But then, just as suddenly as they began, the screams stopped. Silence filled the hallway. The only sound left was the bell ringing one soft note, ding. We didn't run, not yet. Instead, we backed toward the stairs, slow and careful. Mr. Lane, our guide, met us halfway. "What did you see?" he asked, his flashlight scanning the dust. "Nothing," I said quickly. Just noise." My words felt hollow. We all knew it wasn't just noise. Jordan replayed his recorder, static at first, then the sound of the scream again, louder than we remembered. And in the background, beneath the scream, another voice whispered, "Stay!" That was enough to make my chest tighten. Mr. Lane led us down to the second floor to calm down. For a moment, things were quieter. The air felt less heavy. We sat on the steps, catching our breath. "Sometimes the building plays tricks," Mr. Lane said gently. "It wants your attention. That's all." He tried to make it sound normal, but his eyes betrayed him. He was shaken too. We drank water, hoping the pause would bring back courage. For a while it did. That was our low moment, a small island of calm in the storm. But then, as we stood to leave, the elevator at the end of the hall dinged. The doors creaked open, though no one had pressed a button and the power was supposed to be cut years ago. Inside the elevator was only darkness, but it felt full, like something waited there. The doors stayed open longer than they should have, then slid shut with a thud. Lily whispered, "It's watching us." None of us disagreed. We tried to focus on the tour again. Mr. Lane led us to the fourth floor, known as one of the most active areas. The hallway stretched long and narrow with riot, on both sides. Our footsteps echoed strangely, like they didn't belong to us. Jordan aimed his recorder into one of the empty rooms and asked softly, "Is anyone here?" For a moment, nothing. Then we heard it, soft sobbing, like a child crying into their pillow. But the room was empty. Jordan's recorder blinked red, capturing everything. We needed relief. Mr. Lane suggested a stop on the porch, where patients once sat to see the stars. The air outside was cool, and the night sky stretched endless above us. For a brief moment, we felt peace. The stars seemed bright, sharp, and still. Lily closed her eyes, breathing slowly. "Finally quiet," she said. But then, just as she spoke, we heard a faint hum. It wasn't the wind. It sounded like voices singing together, soft and distant, coming from the roof. It was beautiful, but too strange to be comforting. We returned inside, and that was when the second scream came. Louder this time, closer. It ripped through the hall with such force that plaster dust rained from the ceiling. We ran toward the stairwell, but the sound followed us, chasing us floor by floor. My flashlight beam caught something in the hall ahead, a tall figure in a pale coat, walking slowly toward us. Its face was blurred, impossible to see, but its steps echoed like heavy boots. It raised one hand, pointing us back the way we came, as if warning us not to leave. Mr. Lane shouted, "Keep moving!" We bolted down the stairs, our gear clattering, our hearts racing. We made it to the basement door. That was when we heard it. The sound of rolling wheels on concrete. The unmistakable squeak of an old stretcher. It was coming from the tunnel below, the one people called the body chute. The sound grew louder, closer, as if the stretcher was being pushed straight toward us. We froze at the basement entrance. The air smelled like damp earth. The rolling sound stopped right in front of us, but nothing was there. Then, without warning, every door in the hallway slammed shut at once. Bang, bang, bang. The noise shook the whole building. The final door at the end slammed so hard that the echo rattled through the floor. And then the screaming began again. Not one voice, not two, but dozens, maybe hundreds, filling the basement, until it sounded like the walls themselves were alive.